Hi, I'm Joan Cartan Hansen. Thank you for joining us for this Dialogue Web Extra. We're talking with Secretary of State, Idaho's Secretary of State Pete Cianerusa, Roya Guerin, and Jim Weatherby are joining me also to talk to Pete. You have a new book out that you've published, your memoirs, Vizcaya to Boise. And while I've got you here in this Web Extra, I wanted to ask a real quick question about you are known for having met and worked with every president from Truman to the younger Bush, George W. Bush. Tell me a little bit about each president. What did you think of Truman?
Well, I met the first president that I met was Harry Truman, and I invited him to Cary, to my hometown of Cary, to dedicate an airstrip that we put in there. Chet Moulton was the director of aeronautics, and he helped us construct an airport in a day. And all the farmers got their equipment out there, and they donated their work and their machinery, and the state furnished the fuel, and we built a runway. And so
now he came, but I understand he made kind of his speech didn't help out the Democrats in the state.
No, he didn't. He made some errors, and he was honoring a serviceman killed in the war, and it wasn't a serviceman killed in the war. It was a young girl, a 16-year-old girl who got killed there, and the pilot who was a private pilot, and he was low on experience and too high on ambition, I guess, and he crashed that airplane that killed them both, and they buzzed a farmstead, a farm home of this girl's grandfather, and this type of airplane stalls out easily anyhow. So when he pulled up like this, he stalled out and it came right down and hit the ground, going straight down. And so this little girl's uncle came to me and said, "Harry Truman is in Sun Valley, and would you go up there and see if you can get him to come down and dedicate that airstrip in the honor of this little girl, Wilma Coates. In fact, she's my wife's cousin, Coates, also, Wilma Coates, first cousin." And so I said, "Sure, I'll go up there."
And you almost got arrested.
Yes, and when we went up there, I talked to the head of the Democrat committee, state committee, Dan Kavanaugh, and he said, "Oh no, there's no way you can do that. Forget about it. You can't get the president to go stop in a little town like Cary." And about that time, Conroy Gillespie, he was a publisher and editor of the Haley Times then. Now it was the Wood River Journal, but it was the Haley Times. And he came in and I said, "Con, this is what I want to get done." He said, "Well, I just came in from there. I'm a press man." He's a press man. He was invited as a local press member to a reception they had for the president. He said, "I just came from there. Let's go back up there right now and we'll see what we can do." Fine, we did. We went up there, and the first man that we got acquainted with was Charlie Ross. He was the president's press secretary. And so I talked to Charlie Ross, and I asked him if he could do this, if the president could stop in Cary on his way to Butte, Montana. He was going.
Because the road, you have to go that way at that time.
You have to
couldn't
go by
now
caravan.
you can go around, but the road didn't
Yeah.
exist at that point.
He went in by on a whistle-stop train, to Sun Valley, but he had to go by automobile to cut off and go to Butte, Montana. So he had to go by car caravan, and it put him right through Cary. So that's what put him
easy to stop.
And so, sure enough.
Forgive me for rushing on because we're rapidly running out of time. Essentially, you went back once you got his permission. You went back to town and you started telling everybody in town that the president was coming.
Yeah, we honked the horn.
And that's when you got arrested.
And the deputy sheriff was, well, that's all right. He was a Democrat, and he was just going into home retiring, and he didn't like this honking the horn in town, and so he jumped in his car and caught us and stopped us, and he said, "I'm giving you a citation for disturbing the peace. And Con Gillespie said, no, that's right. President Truman is coming to Cary in just a few hours from now. And this is, and I'll show you my badge. This is my badge. I was invited to the party, to the reception. And he said, if you don't shut up, I'll give you a ticket too.
Well, let me ask you about President Nixon. What did you think of President Nixon?
I like President Nixon. He was in Idaho Falls. I met him in Idaho Falls, and he landed there, and we were at the airport, and there were several. Jack Murphy was there, and I was invited. I was introduced to President Nixon as being a Basque. And he said, well, that's all right. He said, Basque are good people. And shook hands with me. And
Did you think he had any idea what a Basque person was?
I think he did, because he came from California.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think he did. He came from California. But I didn't think it was necessary for him to get into that Watergate. He had the election won. Why was it necessary to go to Watergate? He didn't need to do that. It was foolish.
How about Johnson? President Johnson, what did you
President
think
Johnson, Jack Murphy and I both went to the White House and visited with President Johnson, and he gave a talk to several people there. And then we went to the Rose Garden, and then we went into his office, the Oval Office, and took pictures and shaking hands with him. And he was a very pleasant fellow. President Johnson was.
So of all the presidents you've met, which one do you like the best?
I'll tell you, in conversation, carrying a conversation and one-on-one, it was President Clinton.
There you go.
Actually, it was, we were together only just a few minutes, but shaking hands with him, and his vocabulary and his ability to speak to a person one-on-one, it was fabulous. And he was so pleasant. And then next to me was Butch Otter, and he had cowboy boots on, and the president had cowboy boots, and they struck up a conversation to maybe trade their boots. And he was just a very pleasant fellow.
Now there's one incident in your work as speaker, one story that Jim wanted to talk about. Why don't you add? You're infamous for this story.
I want Mr. Santa Rosa to talk about the Little Wood River list and bill and
yes,
threatened retribution.
Retribution, yes.
But we only have about 2 minutes, so.
Okay. I introduced this bill. It was a $10,000 bill to appropriate money for flood control on the Little Wood River near Cary, because it flooded often and flooded all the homes and the streets and all that. And so at the same time, it was Paul Holm from Jefferson County. He had floods out of Ryrie in the Snake River, and so he wanted to introduce a flood control bill. So he introduced a like bill as mine, and so we had two bills in there. Well, I wasn't going along 100% with the Republicans all the time, and so some of the Republicans thought, we're going to tell this, I was a young fellow then, this young man a lesson. We're going to teach him a lesson. We're going to kill his bill, and we're going to pass the other one. And they did. And that was the wrong thing to do. If they'd killed both of them, that's fine. And like Ralph Wickberg came to me immediately. He voted against mine, and he voted against the other one. I said, fine, that's good, and that's fine. We vote the same. And he was irritated, and he said, Pete, that was a dirty trick they pulled on you. And so I said, okay. I wasn't going to come back again. That was my last session, 2 sessions. That was my last session. I was not going to come back to the legislature again. I was going to stay with the sheep business. But I decided right then that I'm going to come back, and I'm going to come back, and come back, and back, until every one of you that double-crossed me, that voted against my bill and voted for the other one, are gone.
And you did.
And I did.
And you kept that list. In fact, it was your staff actually framed it at some point and
They
put it
did.
on the wall because you outlasted them.
Yeah, I outlasted them. Yes. And it became a legend, you know.
Because you'd bring it up.
That's right.
Not be voted.
That's how legends are made. I'm sorry, sir. We've run out of time. Thank you for being with us, Sir Sherry.
Thank
And
you.
again, your book is available. Roy, why don't you tell folks where they can find the book, Vizcaya de Boise, the memoirs of Pete Centerusa?
At the Boise Basque Museum at 601 Grove Street. It's also online at the University of Nevada Press.
And we have links to that and more information on our website. Go ahead and check it out. Thank you for joining us for this Dialogue Web Extra.